Hey everyone, it's David here. The way the Skype sessions normally work is we'll have one or two co-hosts on the main podcast channel, and then the co-host who wasn't actually on the episode will then do a response video, often with one of the other co-hosts. But for today's episode, Matt said that he had nothing to add, which I think just goes to prove that Andrew and I recorded the perfect episode. But while Matt might not have anything to add, I do. Surprise, surprise. There are two quotations from Mere Christianity that I really wanted to dig into in today's episode, but I was keeping an eye on the time and it was running a little low, so I just skipped over them. So that's what I'd like to do today. Just read the two quotations I wanted to include and offer a few points of commentary. Now, the first quotation relates to pacifism, because in the history of Christianity, there has been a real tension when it comes to pacifism. After all, you can read through the pages of the New Testament, and Jesus says things like, turn the other cheek. You go to the Old Testament, and you find, thou shalt not kill. And in the early days of Christianity, in the early days of the church, when the church was insignificant and didn't have a state to run, you do find figures like Tertullian and Origen arguing very forcefully for a form of pacifism. But at the same time, you also find Christian soldier saints. So the 40 martyrs of Sebastia are the ones that spring to my mind. Check out their story, it's very cool. But there's been this tension, and then when you had Christianity rise up to become the religion of the Roman Empire, you now have borders to defend, and if you're a Christian nation, you've now kind of got to decide, well, how does this work now? And you had figures like St. Augustine put forward his just war theory, and that taken up with figures like St. Thomas Aquinas. But that's all to say that there have been figures on both sides of this argument. And in Mere Christianity, Lewis explains why he's not a pacifist. He's also got a separate essay where he talks about this. But since we've spoken about Mere Christianity before on this podcast, I thought I would quote the section from this book. Lewis says, "It is, therefore, in my opinion, perfectly right for a Christian soldier to kill an enemy. I have always thought so ever since I became a Christian and long before the war, and I still think so now that we are at peace. It is no good quoting 'thou shalt not kill.' There are two Greek words, the ordinary word to kill and the word to murder. And when Christ quotes that commandment, he uses the murder one in all three accounts, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And I am told there is the same distinction in Hebrew. All killing is not murder any more than all sexual intercourse is adultery. When soldiers came to St. John the Baptist asking what to do, he never remotely suggested that they ought to leave the army. Nor did Christ when he met a Roman sergeant major, what they call a centurion. The idea of the knight, the Christian in arms for the defense of a good cause, is one of the great Christian ideas. War is a dreadful thing, and I can respect an honest pacifist, though I think he's entirely mistaken." So there you go. And this is why Screwtape sees both pacifist and ardent patriot as viable options for his patient. And the other quotation relates to the subject of politics, because in today's episode, Andrew and I, we spoke about politics quite a bit, given that we currently have an election going on here in the United States, and also Screwtape speaks about politics as a means of disrupting the patient. He wants to use politics like a virus, so that it'll infect his faith, eventually co-opt it, take it over, and replace it. So here is what C.S. Lewis wrote about politics in Mere Christianity. Christianity has not, and does not profess to have, a detailed political program for applying do as you would be done by to a particular society at a particular moment. It could not have. It is meant for all men at all times, and the particular program which suited one place or time would not suit another. And anyhow, that is not how Christianity works. When it tells you to feed the hungry, it does not give you lessons in cookery. When it tells you to read the scriptures, it does not give you lessons in Hebrew and Greek, or even English grammar. It was never intended to replace or supersede the ordinary human arts and sciences. It is rather a director which will set them all to the right jobs, and a source of energy which will give them all new life, if only they will put themselves at its disposal. So while some religions, such as, say, Islam, brings with it a whole set of jurisprudence and a political program and a structure for society, Christianity doesn't. It has sets of principles which then need to be applied to the current society, which is why Christianity doesn't provide a detailed political program as we would often like. And I think it's probably also worth mentioning that Lewis himself was notoriously apolitical. And he even actually turned down some honours by the British government because he was afraid that it would make him look political. So there you go. Those were just two quotations that I had wanted to read out on the podcast, but we just ran out of time. And so I hope this has helped cleared up your understanding of how Lewis viewed the issues of pacifism and politics. Please join us next time. Cheers. It's water.